This is Ben, and I'm just reviewing how to make a logo spinner real quick. So I've opened this Aaron Edwards project, and this is just something easy we can make one in. So once you have your video that you want the logo spinner to be on, here's what I would do. I would hit the create a new composition button down here in your project menu, and it's right there. You can either click it there, or you can always go to file new composition, or you can hit command in or this weird key and it'll do. So anyways, you're going to start a new composition. My size of my composition I'm in right now is 1920 by 1080. That's a great size. That's what we use for a lot of our videos, so that looks good to me. Now, first of all, composition name. I'm probably going to name this something like spinner or rotator. But see, I've actually already created these in this composition or in this After Effects file. So I'm going to call it something different because I'm pretending like these aren't made because I want to show you for example purposes. So right now I'm going to call this logo 5S, and that stands for logo 5 seconds. Now what I want to do is I basically want this new composition to be only 5 seconds long, and I'll show you why in just a second. So there we go. That should be good. All right, it opens up a window, and I hit play, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 seconds. All right, next I'm going to go to search. I'm going to find the logo. Here's a little file with the logo in it. All right, I'm going to take the logo. I'm going to obviously drag it into my project folder. So now it's in After Effects. I'm going to drag it into this composition. So I want to hit scale, and I'll scale it down to where, okay, it automatically, when I dragged it into this composition, it automatically plopped it in the center of this. I just had to hit S for scale and then scale it down a little bit. So that way it's not like that, cut out outside of my composition. All right, so now I've got the logo in. It's 5 seconds long. Well, now I need to make it spin. Well, I'm going to move my time indicator to the beginning of the window, and I'm going to right click on it. And if you think about this spinning, I don't need to make it rotate. Like if I hit R for rotation and I turn it like that, that's not what I want to do. I want to make it spin like in 3D. So what am I going to do? How do I do that? Well, it's something called Postcard 3D. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to turn it into a 3D layer. So that means now this layer, and you see a bunch of controls pop up for it. Now this layer will operate in 3D space. So let's right click and we'll turn this off. Boom, all those controls disappear. Let's right click and we turn 3D layer on. Boom, all those controls appear. See, even if you hit this arrow right here and you can't see the controls, as long as you right click on it and it says 3D layer, you know you're good to go. You know you can make the spin in 3D space. All right, so how do we actually make it rotate after we turn it on into a 3D layer? Well, we click the down arrow, or we can hit R. Either way, what we're getting to is this set of rotation tools, okay? So we hit R, we click the layer and hit R, or we hit the down arrow. Now, once we do that, we see a couple options. X, Y, and Z rotation is what we're really interested in. X does it this way on the X-axis. Y does it this way, which is what we're interested in. And then Z does it this way, which you can have Z rotation on a non-3D layer, which is what we were doing just a second ago. So what we're interested in the style we do for this is Y rotation, like this. All right. So what we want to do is, I found out it looks cool to kind of start it like this. So you can see it's kind of already angled and it's at positive 44 degrees. And so what I'll do is I'll turn that stopwatch on, which automatically creates a keyframe right here and says at this time the rotation should be there. And then what I do is I move the timeline forward to, remember I only have a 5 second composition. Comp stands for composition. And I'm going to move it forward right before the 5 seconds is up. And I'm going to take this Y rotation and I'm going to tell it, all right, during these 4 seconds, I want it to go from there all the way to where it turns and it looks like that. So let's play it real quick. So I want it basically to go. And I'm just dragging this. I'm not really playing it. But I basically want it to do that during the 4 seconds. So ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then after that, I want it to spin a couple times so it looks like, cool, for lack of a better term. So I'm going to, remember I dropped this keyframe right close to the end, but it's not quite to the end. Actually, I'm going to scoot it up a little bit because basically what I'm calculating is the time I want it spinning. And I don't want that time to be a lot. I just want it to be like, and then, it starts over. Now, think about it. If I've got a slower paced movie like the Karen Jerkowicz one, I might make this composition 10 seconds long. So every 10 seconds, it does a little flashy spin mabob. But on the faster paced ones, I'll make this only 5 seconds because I want the videos to be flashier, and I don't mind if this thing spins a little more often, more frequent. Now, does that really make or break anything? No. But it's something to keep in mind. So right now, I've said this video with Aaron's a little faster pace. I'm going to make this 5 seconds. So again, I established my keyframes. I established my simple rotation. Now I'm going to use this last bit of time. I'm going to move the time indicator over here. And I'm going to take my Y rotation again. And I'm going to say basically what I want it to do is I want it to turn and look. Now, if I just left it right there, what does it do? It leaves it illegible. So what I want to do is I want to turn it one more time to basically where I started. That's about where I started, right about there. You know what I mean? So at the beginning of this composition, I was right there, and then I move it to the end, and look, that matches up pretty close. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play this time. I'm going to hit spacebar, and it's moving. It looks good. Boom. And see how it flips at the end? I got a nice little loop going on here. All right. That's perfect. All right, so now what am I going to do? Now I've only got 5 seconds of that. Do I go into this and load those in over and over and over? Absolutely not. I'm going to create a special composition that's just for putting all those 5-second loops together. Because it's easier to animate it once and then duplicate that composition a bunch of times than it would be to animate every single spin. That would take an eternity. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to either hit the new composition button, we'll right click and hit new composition inside this gray area of the project, or we'll just go to composition, new composition, or we'll hit command in. Any of those work. So now this one, remember the one before we named it Logo 5S. This one we'll call Logo Compiler. And basically, in my mind, and again, we're going to leave these settings correct because that's what I want. I want it as big as possible as far as the screen size. But I know in the back of my head, Logo Compiler is where I'm going to take all these 5-second clips and put them together. Well, look, Logo Compiler is only 5 seconds because it always defaults to the composition settings of the composition you were just in or just using or just created. So what am I going to do? This is only 5 seconds long. It's simple. I just go up here to composition. I click composition settings, and I know that this is hours right here, this first 0, minutes right here, seconds, and then frames. So this is currently 5 seconds. This video with Aaron's, a lot of our agent videos are a minute or 2, so I'm going to make it 5 minutes just to be safe. Okay, I'm going to hit OK. I don't need to change anything else. Everything else is good to go. Well, look, it still looks like it's only 5 seconds. Well, if you're paying attention real careful, you'll see this zoom in frame level or entire comp size. This changed when I hit enter right then. So you just take this little knob here, you click it and slide out. And now, look, now we've got over 5 minutes to play with. Well, what we want is we want this 5-second comp to cycle over and over and over. So what do we need to do? We can hit the plus key or the minus key and zoom in and out on our timeline right there. We're going to zoom in and we're going to hit Command D, which duplicates that. See how it duplicated this composition. This is our 5-second logo cycle. So we're going to take this and we're going to make it end right there and butt up against each other. Now look, we're not going to take it 1 second or 1 frame past, because what will happen is between each logo blip, it'll go black for a second. I'll make it a little more obvious. See how it blinks there? Watch this. You can see it ever so slightly blinks. So we want these to be butted up against each other. All right, they're butted up against each other. And now what are we going to do? Well, obviously we'll want this first one to be right here at the beginning of this composition. But now we've got 2 of them butted up against. We're going to select this one by clicking on it. Then we're going to select this one by hitting Shift and clicking on it. Now we got 2. Now we're going to hit Command D again. And what I do to keep things simple is I click them over here. I click over here. And I drag them up top. So now I've got these 2 up here. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag down there. And again, I'm zoomed in. Remember, I hit plus to zoom in, minus to zoom out. And I'm making sure that these are butted up against each other perfect. They're not overlapping and they're not over or under. And I'm not changing the size of the comp to butt them up against it. I've got perfect spacing. Now I'm going to select all 4. I click on this one. Right here in the composition window, I hold down Shift and I click on this one. Now all 4 are selected. I'm going to hit Command D again. It duplicates all of them. Again, I'm going to drag them to the top. Then I'm going to drag them over. With the precision of a surgeon, I'm going to zoom in here and line them up. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to click the bottom one, click the top one. And every time we do this, we get a larger collection of them. And we're saving time by doing it this way. Now zoom in, bottom, zoom out. Now I'm going to click the bottom one, click the top one. Again, we're just duplicating our efforts and bringing it over. And surgeon-like precision. I'm doing this all fast because I learned my hotkeys. Zoom out, go to the bottom, go to the top. Again, now we've got like a 2-minute and 45-second continuous spinner loop. Okay, all right, I'm moving these over. I'm going to click here, zoom in, boom. All right, now we've got a whole 5 minutes worth of comp. Like, we can fast forward through it, and there we go, good. Now this is black because there's no background on this composition. That's exactly how we want it. This is called the logo compiler. Now we're going to click close on this. Now we've got Aaron, and say this is like, okay, it's the final product. Oh my God, this video is so awesome. You know, now we're going to take this logo compiler, and usually we're going to put it on one of the upper layers because we want it to go over all the other elements in the video. So it's pretty big right now. We're going to click here on the layer, hit S for scale. We're going to scale it down just to where we feel like it's appropriate. And I don't believe this should be really big. I feel like it's like kind of like when a photographer takes really beautiful pictures, but then their photography logo is so big it just trashes up and makes the photo tacky. I feel the same way about this logo. I feel like it should be really subtle down here. Kind of like when you watch the news, like the CNN logo will be small down here, and there'll usually be some kind of subtle animation, but it's not like the Tommy Hilfiger logos were on the Tommy Hilfiger's clothes for a while. Like, this is not what we want to do, obviously. And you know that. But anyways, so I'm going to make this little bad boy doing that right there. And now another thing, the polishing touch, obviously, if I want to, I can hit T for transparency, which is the same as opacity, which is can you see through it or not. And I moved my timer to the beginning, and I'm basically saying at 0 seconds, I want this to equal 0. Okay? And then I'll move it in. I'll zoom in using my plus symbol, and I'll say, okay, at 2 seconds, I want this to equal 100%. Now I'll back my little timeline indicator, and I'll hit play, and look, now you have a nice fade. Did you see that? You have a nice fade. Swoosh. It comes in. All right. You could do the same thing with scaling. So right now it's at 26. And that's the size I like. So I turn scale on, and I know that's the size I like, and I want it by 2 seconds to be at the size I like. I want it to start off at 0 though. So now I hit play. Boom. I really don't like the scale in for the logo. I think that looks really cheesy. But I don't mind that just simple transparency fade in. That's nice. Now, another thing you could do is you could wait until it spins like right there and maybe catch it to where it's close to sideways. And then you could hit Command or Shift Command D, and that splits this layer. You could delete this segment and then just bring it over here. So then basically what happens is it looks like it just folds in. Like if you watch this area close, like whoosh, see? It kind of just appeared out of nowhere, like poof. Because basically what you did is you cut this clip to make it start off with the spin. So that makes it look like boom, it came in. All right, so that's basically creating a spinner. I've told you everything I know about them. The only thing that I could say that you could do after this to kind of spice them up a little bit, if you wanted to, is you could always, and I mean, this is kind of goofy. You may not want to do this, but you could always go to flare. You could always search flare, and if you've got a good flare video, let's see a good flare video. I want one like that that's all kind of, see how it's all contained inside the frame? So this is called Flare 2. I'm going to drag it inside of here. All right, it pops in. Now, listen, I'm not going to put this flare in every 5-second container. Remember, we have the logo 5S, which is the 5-second file. And then we have the logo compiler, which is the long one. But what I could do is I could take that flare and then not every 5 seconds, but maybe every minute or 2 minutes, I could just make it kind of drift across this area of the logo. Now what I want to do is I drag that flare into this comp. I'm going to go to the blend modes, which are right here. And I'm going to say, let's see, overlay. Nope, that doesn't look exactly right. Let's try screen. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. I'm going to move this up a little bit, maybe like right along that line. And it may not be the effect I want, but we'll see. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I see that right there. I see you. But what I might do is, like, sometimes I like kind of making these dramatic. If you make this, I'm going to show you something where like it'll save you some heartache. But if you make this big like this and then put it there, you really can't do that, because when you go back to the main comp, you'll be able to see the edges of this composition. So let's go back to Aaron's, and it's like you can clearly see something weird's going on there. So you have to keep these really small, like that, to make sure that any fading of the light ends by the end of your big composition, like that. Now, we might have to change the blend mode of this one too, for it to interpret that properly. So that being said, like for right now, I would probably stay away from flares in the logo area unless you add it into the main comp, because it looks like you can't embed them or nest them. But what you could do is you could add it here in the main comp over the logo. So let's see what that will look like. There we go. Now we're going to change the screen, and then you could bring it down here to where, there you go. Now you have one. So you can't nest them like I was trying to do. I was trying to nest it in the composition. You would have to put it in this main composition out here. And see, it wouldn't even make sense it going that far out. So I'm going to scale it. I'm going to make it a smaller, more subtle effect. And I want to keep it around the logo, or in my opinion, I feel like it. So boom, you see that? That looks pretty cool. I kind of almost want to make it smaller, like 10. That way, if I scale it down to 10%, it stays on the logo the whole time. Now let's look at it. It may be small, but oh, that's real subtle. You see that line? Now you got some Lexus flares going on because they're subtle. Anyways, this wraps up spinners. I hope you have fun. Thank you. You're awesome.